we're looking at a Terminator scenario, I will be in the resistance.
Gavin Baker.
Gavin Baker is with us.
Managing partner and CIO of Atreides.
Gavin and I collaborate on artificial intelligence investments.
I feel safer when Antonio's firm, Valor, is invested and on the board.
Antonio Gracias, board member at Tesla and an early investor in the company.
We're known at Valor for investing in world-changing companies. A shared passion, and that shared intellectual passion has led us to do a lot of deals together.
If you do not start using AI regularly, you will be outcompeted by people who do.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us again. So, we did this last year, the three of us. I still haven't been able to get Gurley back, so you're still stuck with me.
We love you, Ron.
Thank you. I love you too, Gavin. All right, so let's start with AI, because you guys are definitely experts in AI. And I need to tell you, I recently installed Claudebot, which then was something else, and now is OpenClaw. I am completely addicted to this thing. It is doing a million things for me. I haven't given it access to anything. It doesn't have access to my email or my phone, but I gave it its own email address, and I kind of treat it like an assistant. It will talk to people and send information and analyze things. It's unbelievable how good it is. So this thing scares me at the same time, right? Because it's open source, and I hear horror stories about things giving away like API keys and stuff. But it clearly is the next step in my mind in the evolution of AI. Do either of you have one yet? And if not, will you soon?
Yeah, good.
I hope I have one soon. I do agree. I think whether it's OpenClaw or something else, this is maybe the next kind of consumer and maybe even business, UI, UX layer for AI. It ensures that the AI always has all the context and information necessary to be useful to you. It knows what's going on in your life. The fact that it's open source should make you feel better, not worse. Open source projects are generally more secure. They're fixing bugs every time. It's a tool. If you, a knife can be dangerous if you use it in the wrong way. And I am encouraged that the OpenClaw Foundation is staying open source even after OpenAI. I guess acqui-hired Peter Steinbrenner, who's the creator. But I do think it's something really, really important, and it's a new game for these AI companies. AG?
Yeah, so I wanted to put one. I wanted to have my own, and my compliance guys were like, you can't do this. We do have, because I just want to try this stuff,
Yeah.
We do have 6 developers at Valor that we hired we hired our own development team about 4 years ago. Because our view was like, we have to eat our own cooking and understand how to use artificial intelligence. So we started with like the boosted trees and then obviously LLMs. We started using this probably 2-3 weeks ago, and it's extraordinary. I mean, I think it's going to remake the way we think about the business and the way we do our underwriting, our analysis in total, and make our people a lot more productive. I looked at the numbers yesterday. Our developers who started using Claude Code like 2 weeks ago, they've seen a 100% uptick in their productivity. So, yeah, it's extraordinary. Extraordinary.
So I am now developing software with it. Like if I have an idea in a moment that I'd like a piece of software to do X, Y, Z, I just talk to this thing. It develops the software. I then tell it to have Grok check all the code. Grok then says there are these critical security holes. I say, fix those holes. I iterate like 3 times, and then it gets like a super high rating in terms of the quality of the code. And I have a software product.
Right.
And I'm doing this, like I built an entire CRM for myself in 2 hours, 3 hours. I mean, it's really mind-boggling. Do you think that element of it is potentially going to impact SaaS businesses? Like I'm thinking we pay $100,000 a year for HubSpot. I'm like, it's me doing it, and I'm an idiot really with this stuff. If I gave someone that tool who's really good, would they be able to redo our HubSpot much better and more precise for what we need?
Yeah.
One, this is 100% being priced into the market. I think HubSpot peaked at $850, and it's in the low 200s. Maybe I'm off by a little on either, but these stocks are down a lot, so that risk is for sure being priced in. I think it will be interesting to see if you were how it bounces. Like it may end up that small businesses are the ones that kind of vibe code their own software, and larger, more regulated businesses want a good housekeeping seal of approval on it. But this is for sure a risk. And conversely, I also think with the valuations some of these public SaaS companies are at, particularly the ones that are smaller cap, it might make sense for one of the labs to acquire a few of these. The reason Larry Ellison is one of the wealthiest people in the world isn't just that he came up with this incredible relational database. It's that he was kind of the original Vista Equity Partners, and that after the bubble burst, he acquired PeopleSoft, he acquired Siebel, and he had the same playbook. He just took out 80% of the humans, the revenue was recurring, and a lab can do the same thing. You can acquire one of these small software companies, take out most of the humans, put a couple of your kind of AI native experts in, and use it as a distribution channel. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I do think, to quote Maximus Decimus Meridius, the decisions that software company CEOs make now will echo in eternity. Like they have 2 to 3 months to make good decisions.
Yes, maybe. I mean, we actually have not invested in a pure software company in like 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
So when it became clear to us that our intelligence was going to be like a real, what it was going to be, we just stopped doing it. And we don't short, we're not in the public marketplace, we can't short these things. And who knows when it already broke, who knows when it's going to break. I will say there are already companies, there's actually a firm here in Miami I know that's doing this, it's buying private software companies and remaking them using AI. We just brought on, one of our newest partners is a former Vista guy to help look at this for us. And yeah, I mean, I think if you're in the software business, you either evolve now, like right now, or you're dead. And I think the knock-on effects of that are going to be very extreme, because many of these firms that were in the sort of the buyout world in the last 5 or 7 years have high-yield debt out, right? You saw what happened. I mean, this is going to have implications throughout the markets, all the way into the debt markets. Again, I don't play in those markets, but I'd be very worried if I were holding the 3 or 4 times levered high-yield security for a buyout done by a software firm 2 years ago.
Right.
I'd be worried about that.
I would just say, I think it's very interesting to me that you haven't seen any of the traditional software PE firms make a purchase yet. They're all saying like, hey, we think AI is going to be amazing for software. Well, you used to think 8 times sales was an incredible deal. Now you can buy stuff for 3 times sales or 4 times sales.
It's a falling knife.
So
not doing it.
Where are you?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Can we talk about some of the safety issues? I know there have been lots of stuff on X about people who've been able to get various AI tools to say some pretty scary stuff. To lie. I heard one story that one of the bots actually threatened someone who was having an affair in the company with like, hey, I'm going to tell everyone about your affair if you don't do X, Y, Z.
That was Claude. That's Claude.
Yeah.
So, like,
Careful with your Claude, by the way. That's his point. Who knows that access to?
Yeah, it's true.
Keep it off your phone.
So, like, how do we deal with that element? Because I love this thing. I don't want to give it up, but I also don't want it to kill me in my sleep someday.
I mean, listen, it's a tool. Like, you don't drive your car drunk for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, you're very careful when you give these bots your payment credentials are, write access to your life in the sense of read access and write access. And I mean, these issues are only multiplying. Like Amazon had a significant outage because they gave a coding agent autonomy to improve code, and it decided that the code, a critical piece of code at AWS, was so bad that it just deleted it and started over.
It sounds like Elon, by the way.
Very Elon.
Very Elon.
Very Elon.
Yeah.
But there was
Elon.
a 14-hour outage. They were able to unplug the servers at X and cut over.
Yeah.
But the bot didn't understand that it needed to tell the humans that it was doing this.
Okay.
So it's a very real issue. Everyone should read the Claude Opus safety reports, and which are for sure the most fulsome. Although I do agree with what Elon said, that Tesla is the safest car, and they don't have a safety team because safety is everyone's job. And so I think like having that ethos at a lab is very important. But yeah, it's a very real issue.
I mean, the thing I might add to this, I think Gavin's right, is that unlike maybe a knife or a gun, right, the model itself has values, right? The models are imbued with the values of the creators. Let me say that again, it's very important. The models are imbued with the values of the creators. So when you look at the people that are building these models, and you ask yourselves, what is your optimization function? If the optimization function is, an example, consumer virality, i.e. OpenAI, you might get a recursive learning loop that creates confirmation bias, and that's people committing suicide, which there are lawsuits about this today. Won't opine if it's right or not, but there are lawsuits about this today. Be careful with this. The reason we went so deep on XAI is its optimization is truth seeking. And I think that's the best way to figure out if something's going to be safe for you to use, are you identifying with the values of people building it? So one might be marginally better than another. Ultimately, these things are all going to be very, very competitive one with the other. I think the world will break out into who cares about what. So do you care about truth? Then you would probably use, as you did, right? You had Claude and Grok together.
Right.
By the way, thank you for the pitch. Thank you for the business, the tokens. I appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
Thank you very much. But I think that's interesting. That's a very interesting thing to do, right? You use two of them to kind of balance each other. Let's check one against the other. I think that's really smart because you want to make sure you have, at some level, an intellectual balance in the models that are telling you the truth. And look, anything can be wrong ultimately, but what is the optimization and who designed it? If it's designed to be, something you don't like, you should be careful with it.
And in service of that optimization, Grok 4.2, which I highly recommend everyone try, it's the first broad instantiation of multiple agents. So every time you use it, even on the fast tier, it spins up 4 different agents, and you can see them checking each other.
Yeah.
Because it wants to be grounded in reality and truth. And I think that's very good for humans as a species.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was happening. I have Super Grok, and I see it's doing stuff. I guess I never looked.
You can set it to 4.2. It'll show you the agents working each other.
I see. Okay, that's very cool. All right, can we talk? Can we shift to talking a little bit about autonomous driving and Tesla, and also obviously Optimus, because I feel like I've heard at least 2 or 3 times people say, 10 years from now, we're going to say, hey, remember when Tesla was a car company?
They don't say that right now?
I don't know if it really applies just yet, but I will say I bought my dad a Tesla like 6 or 7 months ago, and just riding in it with him, I loved it. So then I got myself one, and I literally don't drive anymore. It drives me everywhere. And now I'm trying to figure out how to fake out the camera that yells at me if it sees me on my phone. But truthfully, it is so good. I do think it's at least as good as me, and I'm probably just not willing to admit that it's better.
I think statistically it probably is better than you. So I would say a few things before turning it over to the true expert. So, and I'm going to start with Claude and Anthropic. So Anthropic is roughly 4 times more capital efficient than OpenAI. And they're growing really, really fast, and they're not burning that much cash. And on top of that, their AI currently can do the longest horizon task. And I think this is the most important access for AI capabilities. A human, we can work on the same task and make progress for days on end, weeks on end, months on end, assuming we sleep and eat. But AIs peter out at 16 hours. Only a few months ago, it was 6 hours. And if you think about it, task length is correlated to a lot of accomplishments. And the reason Claude is so capital efficient and it has the longest task horizon is they're the most token efficient. So I believe XAI has the lowest cost per token because they build data centers, in Jensen's words, in a superhuman way, faster and at a lower cost than everyone, and they run GPUs at a higher utilization. So they have the lowest cost per token. But Anthropic is extremely token efficient. What that means is with a reasoning model, the more tokens it generates, the better the answer. So an Anthropic model can give you a comparable quality answer to, say, a Google model using half as many tokens. And each token is literally cost. So the sum of those two, cost per token and token efficiency, is going to be really, really important. And my good friend Antonio reminded me of something very important on this front this morning. Please, my friend.
Well, Gavin and I were having a conversation about this morning, and I said to him, well, the most efficient on a token per intelligence basis AI in the world is actually the Tesla Autopilot, because it is running on an A4 chip, which is significantly inferior to the H200. It's running at the edge, so it has no access to the cloud, and it's doing the most complex thing a human does. And so, yeah, I think when you think about Tesla, you can think about Optimus. You can also think about the fact that Tesla actually has today the most advanced AI in the world. It does the most complex thing a human does, drive a car. And what it does is it sees a pixel, predicts a pixel, issues a command. What you're doing when you do Claude, we use Claude to make code, you're trying to get it to create the command that makes the pixel. Imagine if you're in a world where what the AI does is sees a pixel, predicts a pixel, issues a command, it makes your software as if it were on the screen already. Like the developer sitting at the right. So that's where this is all going ultimately. And as Gavin points out correctly, I'm going to be careful in a quiet period for SpaceX AI, but we're going after at XAI is if the integration of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering drives the data center efficiency. When you add being really good at software and integrating the software onto the chip and all the networking, which Tesla's really good at, right? When you kind of port that over, it's in Elon's head, into XAI, what you get is something that's much more efficient at producing a unit of intelligence, ultimately, which is the ultimate answer. How do we get there? You want the most efficient unit of intelligence, a token that's unit of intelligence, and this is the path.
Interesting.
And this is also, I think, why hopefully humans have a role for longer to play, because Claude can do amazing things, as can XAI, as can Gemini, but they were all trained on hundreds of megawatts of power over many months. Our brains run on 20 to 30 watts.
Right.
And what Antonio just said is with Tesla's AI, this is the first time that you've gotten superhuman AI at the same power consumption as the human mind.
Is it literally the same power consumption?
It's very close.
It's low.
I mean, 20 watts of power is what your brain uses, and the car is probably in that range.
Wow.
I think it's 50.
Yeah.
But close enough
That's
for
still
government
amazing.
work.
Yeah. That's very impressive. Okay, so I assume this sets them up to introduce a robot, Optimus, that can probably do things that other robots that we've seen, I imagine, can't come close to. Are we gonna see this thing anytime soon? You have no knowledge.
I absolutely believe that, and I'm super excited for it. The only I have a very happy marriage, but a source of marital conflict is that I don't always love to take out the trash immediately. I'm sometimes okay with leaving some dishes in the sink instead of putting them in the dishwasher immediately. Sometimes I've been known to leave dirty clothes on the floor of my closet instead of the hamper. And
this surprises literally no one.
Exactly.
You could just hire a human, by the way. They need jobs too.
Well, yes, for sure, humans need jobs. But my wife is a big believer in doing things ourselves. But I just don't think that belief is going to extend to a robot. So I hope I am literally consumer number one, or top 10 of Optimus, because it's going to make a meaningful difference in the only source of marital discord. But I think it's coming. I think it's real. I don't know if it's later this year or if it's 2027. But the big breakthrough, there's a huge debate in humanoid robots versus specialized robots. And I kind of think that debate is over now that they've figured out how a humanoid robot can learn from videos of humans doing things. And we have a vast amount of video of humans doing things.
Yeah.
And I think this is pretty decisive that humanoid robots are going to be a big winner. And I think it's Tesla versus the Chinese there in the same way it's there in the EVs, except this time, or I guess just like EVs, Tesla has a better AI.
Yeah, I mean, the only idea of this, I think we have to win. Like, we have to have one. There's no choice. You probably saw, like, last week, there was a video of the Chinese competitor to Optimus, which is like doing martial arts and running around with a machine gun on the internet. That's real. That's real. It's not CGI. It's actually real. And I think if we don't have Optimus, it's the only real competitor in the U.S. and in the Western world for the Chinese platform. We are in trouble. I mean, imagine a strategic competitive map where a competitor has a overwhelming technology, and we don't. I mean, if you're worried about something, worry about that across the defense tech ecosystem, whether it's drones, humanoid robots, whatever part of that value chain you're looking at. we need to have at least strategic parity, if not better, 100%.
So that's a great segue into chatting a little bit about defense. Obviously, China is really the only country we ever hear about in terms of a true adversary. We hear about their drones all the time, these drone swarms. Someone said, Joe Lonsdale earlier today said, when you see the 10,000 drone beautiful display, all these beautiful artistic things they're forming, that's actually a military exercise. They're demonstrating their drone capability to the rest of the military world. Give us your views on, I guess, AI in defense, and again, how do we implement it in a way where it doesn't turn on us? Like, we want to defend against China, but we also don't want it to be used to track us, to do things that are obviously bad for the country.
I would just say, I think geopolitical fears have been weaponized such we're not going to regulate any of this. And we can't regulate it if China is not, and they're clearly not. I mean, they're doing those, drone shows with 10,000+ regularly. So I think it's essential that America win. I think America is very important for the world. Like, as a country, we stand for something, and we cannot protect the free world and maintain the free world and whatever people may say. I do think we're still very committed to a rules-based order, which has served the world well for many years now. If we aren't dominant in one, robotics, to mass production of robotics at very low cost, and dominant in AI. Mm-hmm. So we have to win. But Antonio is the true expert here, so please.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, we do have an expert actually at our firm. We've been lucky enough to bring on as a partner recently Chris Cavoli, who you interviewed earlier, who's the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO and Commander of U.S. Forces in Europe, and spent 30+ years in the Army thinking about these issues. He's joined us. We do a lot of national defense, as you know, and he's leading us through thinking about all the issues Gavin just laid out. So everything from what is the right end application, whether it's drones, robots, whatever it might be, hypersonic missiles, et cetera, and the supply chain in the U.S., as well as other things like energy, which we do as well. So these are very important issues. We're working on it, I'd say very definitively at our firm and trying to figure out how we can add value. We built manufacturing capacity over the last 30 years in our firm, that experience internally, and we're really leaning into helping all the firms we believe are going to make a difference here for America in the next 3 to 5 years, and Chris is helping lead us through that.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left. Let's talk about energy, right? Because none of this is possible if we don't solve the energy problem that we have in the U.S. China is outpacing us massively. You guys can quantify it better than I can. But I just know that we don't really stand a chance going toe-to-toe with them in terms of creating more energy capacity in the country. We've heard Elon talk about putting data centers in space as a much more efficient way to compete. I'd love to just get your thoughts on how does the U.S. ultimately deal with this issue, because we're running out of energy.
Well, or data centers in space, and it's really racks in space. I think people get hung up on data centers in space, and they're picturing, a building the size of the Pentagon floating around in space, and they're saying that's implausible. It's racks in space. A Starlink V3 satellite today consumes 20 kilowatts. An NVIDIA Blackwell rack consumes 130. So if you scale that up by a factor of 5, the Starlink V3, maybe you have a rack in space that consumes 100 kilowatts and has 50 or 60 accelerators. Well, what makes a data center? You connect those racks using lasers beyond a distance of 10 feet or 20 feet, traveling over fiber optic cables. And then you have a data center. Every Starlink satellite is connected to every other Starlink satellite with lasers. Mm-hmm. And the only thing faster than a laser traveling over a fiber optic cable is a laser in vacuum.
Yeah.
So picture kind of like a swarm of these satellites connected by laser, and that's your data center. And CDN providers today get a 70% premium kind of per GPU hour because they're very close to the consumer.
Sorry, explain a CDN provider.
Something like Cloudflare. Because there's a lower latency experience as a user, and people are willing to pay for that, so the companies pay for it. Even lower latency will be the data centers in space because they're connected to a Starlink, which comes right to your phone.
Okay.
So I think it's very elegant. I think it's very important for America.
I guess what I could add is outside of the idea of solar and space, which I think is a great idea. We're thinking about what other answers you have terrestrially. And look, I think the reason the Chinese got so ahead of us is they're using a mixed solution of, it's coal, it's solar, it's everything, right? We have other things we could do here. I mean, we can do nuclear here. We've got a couple investments in fission reactors, new technologies, small format energy reactors. The U.S. Navy has had the safest nuclear program in the world. They use, it's highly enriched, but small nuclear reactors, and people live next to them in submarines, and there's been no cancer, right? So we know how to do this in this country. Yeah. We absolutely know how to do this. What sent us down this road was I went and I met with one of the former CTOs in the Navy. I said, how do you guys do this? He said, super easy. We use highly enriched uranium. It's a little bit of a problem, but you can do this. So there are a few companies in America that are doing that. We went down this value chain. We figured out there's actually no enrichment in America. I mean, as scary as this might sound, this is like my SpaceX RDU-180 moment where I'd learned that we were flying U.S. rockets on Russian engines. That was disastrous, right? I mean, how could that possibly be? Yeah. Our only space program is using Russian engines. We need to do something about that. The same aha moment, I had a light bulb moment with nuclear where I learned that we don't enrich fuel at all in America. We buy it from the Russians. I mean, let me say that again. We buy all the fuel for weapons and plants from the Russians. So we're investing in a company. We invest in a company. We're hopefully add more to it. That's trying to build capacity in the U.S. to make fuel, and we're reindustrializing the base. Okay, many of us are working on this, reindustrializing the base for multiple answers. I think solar and space is a great answer, but there's terrestrial answers as well. And the last thing I'd say is we have companies that Gavin and I invested together that have found stranded capacity in America. Like, Americans are very scrappy, okay? We are a nation of builders. And when faced with the question, XAI, figure out how to get power down in Memphis, right? Crusoe, figure out how to power behind the meter, stranded wind in Texas. So there is power around this country. There's lots of industrial facilities around this country that are not being utilized that we can repurpose. So I don't think it's wise to be like really down in the mouth and dour about American energy. Mm-hmm. We are America, okay? We invented this. Right. We're gonna figure this out, okay? I believe that. I believe we will rise to the challenge. I think our shitty competitors are good for us. Like, it'll make us better. And I think that's our attitude. Let's just go figure it out.
I 100% all on America, always bet on Team Blue. But I'd add from an investment perspective, because this is an investment conference, I do think, though, the power shortage is actually really good for AI for the following reason. The entire history of financial markets suggests, Carlota Perez wrote a great book about this called, I think, Technological Waves and Financial Bubbles. Every time you get a fundamentally new technology, for the last 400 years, we've had a bubble. Mm-hmm. And it started with the South Sea bubble. What was the new technology? Being able to cross the oceans. Mm-hmm. It was the understanding of longitude. You had a railroad bubble, you had a canal bubble, you had an automobile bubble, you had a TV bubble, you had an internet bubble. And the shortages of watts and the shortages of wafers, I am hopeful. A bubble is terrible. Nobody should want a bubble. Mm-hmm. It's terrible to invest through it. Yeah. It's hard on the way up, it's hard on the way down. But the shortages of watts and also wafers, I think, are gonna keep us from having an overbuild, because normally you get a financial bubble, that leads to a giant overbuild, then you have a crash. If we can't overbuild, because we don't have enough energy, and we don't have enough wafers, because Taiwan Semi won't make the wafers, I think we could have a smoother for longer AI cycle, and that is good for everyone in this room.
And avoid the bubble.
We're in a bubble, but how big? We hope. Question: how big is the bubble?
How big is the bubble?
Yeah, the bubbles. There's definitely bubbles. It's not like one big bubble. There are little bubbles here. There are bubbles around the different areas, different segments. But how big the bubble is the question. How big the break is? Yeah.
For sure.
Well, guys, you never disappoint. I'm always blown away by your depth of knowledge on all of this stuff, and I also just love your optimism about the future and the country. So.
And America.
And America.
Way better than the opposite, which is being pessimistic.
It's way better. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you.